executive session is completed with no action to report, and I'm calling back into session our public business meeting. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Mr. Piccini to lead tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. For everybody who is present, please make note of the emergency exit locations. So in the event of an emergency, you can leave in an orderly fashion through those exits. It's a smoke-free school district, and smoking is not permitted in the building or anywhere on any school grounds. It's also a hate-free school district. And we next will go to the board consent agenda. So you recommend that the board approves board consent items scheduled C1 through C4.
Can you separate C1?
Okay, let's do C1. I'll start over. That the board approves board consent item C1. Mr. Trent, and second by Ms. Ancona. And all in, any questions or discussion about this one? Yes? No?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of approving C1? I've got 5 yes. Any no's? Any abstentions? And these, I believe, were from absences because of the meeting. Okay. So the approval is granted. Next, we have items C2, 3, and 4. Is there a motion to approve items C1, C2, C3, and C4? Mr. Trent, second by Ms. Aruda. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimously approved. Okay, Dr. Gianni.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to start by reporting that I am happy to report that the district has entered into an agreement with the YMCA Patchogue. It is on the agenda for the board's consideration this evening. YMCA Patchogue will be providing before and after care for the district students in grades K through 5. The service will be provided at South Haven for students in grades K through 3, and at the Wise Patchogue location for students in grades 4 and 5. There is a fee for the program, but there is financial assistance also available, and transportation will be provided to and from the program. Another note.
Question?
Sure.
On the YMCA, you said transportation is provided, so that includes to the Patchogue location?
Yes, before after care, we provide transportation.
Thank you.
So Town Bus, our transportation provider, has indicated a severe shortage in bus drivers, driver assistants, and automotive technicians. They are offering top hourly wages, great benefits, and sign-on bonuses. So if any community members are interested in exploring this opportunity, please call Town Bus at 516-349-8200 to schedule a remote interview, or you can visit their website at wetransport.com, and more information is available on our website as well.
May I inquire? Have you given notice of that to the network members?
I believe we did send that out to the network.
Okay.
Yes, the flyer from Tree Transport.
So there was a community member at one of the advisory committee meetings the other day who thought it would be a good idea to get it like to Boys and Girls Club and other areas. So.
Boys and Girls Club is on that list.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And on Thursday, August 12th, and then again on Thursday, August 26th, I will be holding a district-wide parent meeting on Zoom to provide parents the latest information regarding reopening our schools. Notice will go out later this week regarding these meetings. And in addition, on Wednesday, August 11th, and then again on Wednesday, the 25th, I'll be holding a district-wide faculty meeting on Zoom as well, to also provide our faculty and staff with the latest information on reopening our schools. And we'll be sending that notice out sometime this week as well.
What was the date of the 5th? What month?
The faculty?
Yeah, faculty.
The faculties will be Wednesdays, the 11th and the 25th. And the parents will be Thursdays on the 12th and the 26th. And that is all the reports that I have, Ms. Hayes. Turn it back to you.
Well, it's going to go over to trustees to give reports of any advisory committee meetings that they've been to. We'll start with Ms. Felice.
Certainly. We'll start with, I sent a memo to the board advising them of a change in zoning at Brookhaven Town that is within our school district. And I thought it was important for our district to stay aware of these changes and any possible effect it could have on our district. Not only for an influx of students in this particular case, because it has to do with the landfill, because this district has been in so many different situations involving the landfill, that we should just be aware of what is going on. And certainly, since the state and the federal government is looking at environmental justice or injustices that are happening in and around our country and county, to avoid constantly burdening the same communities with municipal actions that in this particular case, waste management, that continue to affect primarily minority communities. And so this rezoning, there were two of us who reached out to board members, Mr. Pacini and myself, reached out to town board members to find out a little bit more of what it was about, because the public information was a little sketchy, and some of the public information wasn't notified, the public wasn't notified in time. So there was a meeting at Town Hall, their first in-person meeting, return to in-person meeting on July 15th, and I had the time, so I chose to attend it in person. And there was well over a dozen people, I'm going to say about 18 people, all mostly from our district, who spoke against the rezoning. This particular land is adjacent to the landfill now. Some of it is being used, others are not, and it is zoned residential, but it is slated to be rezoned in light industrial, and the town thought it would sell this land to pay off some of the debt for the landfill. Community members were upset because of the lack of notification, because of more, even if it's light industry, not really knowing what it's going to be, and in an area that is already overburdened in a particular neighborhood. So the town was required to allow for 10 days notice of additional comment, but because of the outpour of concern, they extended that 30 days. And so residents have until August 16th to voice an opinion on the land. Since then, it was learned that an application has gone into the State Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, for an aerobic digester for that area. And an application to DEC went in, again, without public notification. So DEC has also extended its period of time in which the community can respond to their feelings on it. And then finally, the town forwarded their request for the rezoning to the Suffolk County Department of Planning, and their hearing is tomorrow, August 5th, at 2 o'clock, the Dennison building, but I don't believe people are permitted to go in person, but there is a Zoom link for it. So I probably won't be able to sit in on that one. I won't be able to view that one tomorrow, but it'll be available to be recorded after that. The reason I bring it up to the board is I think it's important to be consistent with our, as the president so appropriately stated in the opening of our district as a hate-free district. We have to be concerned with what's happened to this district in the past with environmental injustice. And this is just one more piece of that I think as a board, we have to make a decision, where do we stand? And what kind of a statement do we make to protect our students? Because the landfill is so closely located to 3 of our schools, Frank P. Long, the high school, and Brookhaven Elementary. And this land that I'm speaking of, this rezoning, is actually closer to Brookhaven and the high school than the original landfill. So it's expanding further east. So I asked that we, we have information that I forwarded to you about the applications, and that we just stay ever present of what is taking place. I will attend the meetings as much as I can. I did say I would draft a letter that I thought we should send, and I didn't do that yet, but we do have time yet, and I can still do that. You know, there's no argument to be made that if it's going to be revenue producing, but at what cost? If it's going to put light industry there, that's still going to be a nuisance and a burden to the residents in that area that have children in our district. And I just wanted to make that known to the board. The other meeting that I attended was a 2 half-day, the summer law conference, which I messaged when I forwarded the information that we were provided. Both myself and the president attended. But the information that we received is not only for attorneys. And it was every single topic was relevant to what we're going through, from the pandemic to contract negotiations. It was just, I'm sure you felt the same about open meeting laws. There was just so much, and we sent the information all to you. There, it was just, I mean, they even went into just everything, special education, sports, everything that, because of what we've learned in this last year. So it was very beneficial to be there. I do have to say, much of what they raised, our legal firm has been very timely with giving us that information and their opinion on it. But this, a board of this size, a district of this size, even though we're considered small compared to other districts, there's just so much, and it takes a team effort to attend the meetings that we can attend and share that information back with everybody, because it's constantly changing. There's so much out there, and it's constantly changing. So we're on top of it, is what I want to say. I want to commend the board for what we've been doing and the district with regard to the reopening. We have much more to do, but everything that we do, we don't take lightly. And I think that's what was really reaffirming in this particular conference, that we are right on top of all the subject matters that are being discussed statewide. And the New York State School Board Association, because they've gotten such an overwhelming response to the online education, even though they are back doing in-person education, they are going to keep this component because people find it much more convenient not to have to travel. So that is going to be available to us in the future. And that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have anything.
No? Mr. Trent?
No.
Nothing? Mr. Pacini?
Nothing.
Mr. Parker? Okay. I'm not gonna not go over anything that Ms. Felice said about the summer law conference, except that I tried to put my notes into an email so everybody could read some of the topics that I thought were particularly of interest. And I am glad to know we have our law firm that is following all these issues. And I'm also grateful to the New York State School Boards Association, which did step into sending notice to the state that they really would appreciate getting some guidance for all of us with regard to what we're going through as we're looking into the start of the new school year. And I attended an equity committee meeting this morning that is very intellectually challenging, and it's really gratifying to hear the staff members who are so invested in their efforts to have we have our policy in place, but also to make sure that it's spread throughout the entire district and everything that we do. And I attended a facilities and finance committee meeting, and it, like all of them, is so well run, and I'm really grateful to our assistant superintendent for business for overseeing this particular committee and the work that's done, and also to Mr. Clements, who's the facility manager, and the work that is done behind the scenes is really impressive. It's a lot of work, a lot of organization, and as you look around, you'll see improvements on all the campuses. You can look at the landscaping and some of the asphalt and some of the repair work on the tennis courts and fences that are going up where they need to go. And the list is pretty much endless because they have to stay on top of all of our buildings and our facilities in order to keep them in good shape. And I appreciate knowing that that is in place. So thanks again to everybody. So I think that's it. We next have our public comment section, and I think there was one letter that came in by email, and she said she wanted it read.
I didn't think we were doing
Yeah,
that.
we said we were doing that.
Okay, do you not, okay, you don't want to take that?
Well, we
Nan?
had said that the last meeting we weren't. I don't want to, that's up to the rest of the
Okay.
trustees as to what they want to do, but we did say the last meeting we weren't, so I don't want to.
Then I'll just say to everybody here, that just came in today, but I'll do the acknowledgement on behalf of the board that we
And I'm fine with
received
it if it wants to be read, but I know that we did say,
And
I
we-
just didn't want to
No, it's
backtrack on what
not,
we
it's
said.
not fair to do that, but to let the writer know that we're all aware of the comments, and the issue is one that will certainly be addressed by the board in an appropriate manner, once we get a recommendation from administration, so.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah,
Where are we, I don't know if it's really under reopening schools or not, but I think we're probably at a place where we can welcome the public back to our meeting so that they can address us in person.
We did last week, yeah, we did last one, that's why I was saying about the email.
Oh, we did? Okay, I
Yeah, that was
was
the
here at
only
the last
reason why I
meeting.
had said that because we
Oh, so
did-
we're done submitting, they
we
gotta show
actually
up, they
have
want,
since
okay,
the
thank you.
July meeting, right,
Uh,
Christine? I
Was the
believe
reorg open to the
notice
public?
has come out for
Oh,
the
you
July
did say
meeting.
that, because I missed the
Yeah.
meeting, that's
yes,
right.
it was.
So
So I guess the
July.
next question is, are we gonna consider going to a different venue so that, I have to think that when school opens, we're gonna have people that wanna come to meetings. Maybe I'm wrong, but, the summer's light. on normal circumstances. So it's something I think we need to consider and talk about at least at the next meeting before school starts, because that's usually when parents start showing up.
Well, then let's add that to the agenda then for the next meeting.
And I think, I mean, we have, I know it has been brought up that we wanted to go to the middle school,
Yeah.
but we were told that we, I mean, because for quite some time, even when we were doing Zooms, we did ask to be able to go into the middle school so that we could social distance. I'm fine with doing that, or the high school or whatever.
High school is.
I was taken back
I-
over the summer by how many of our neighboring districts have been having in-person meetings.
I agree.
Since September with the public.
Right,
That's
and
why
I
was a
had
little-
asked, even long before, last, in the
Yeah,
spring.
and I know a few
if
people
we
have brought
could-
it up.
Yeah, that if we could move to another venue, and I believe we were told that we couldn't, because then we couldn't go live, but I do feel as though with all the tech.
No, that's not true.
We
We've
can
gone
go
live.
on.
Yeah, because I
The
know we
issue-
have
the-
before.
The issue that we had at the high school is we were using the stage area as a isolation area.
Okay, that's,
So we can go live, certainly it won't be the quality that we're here, because it's a portable setup, but we can go live elsewhere.
I think it's something we gotta consider. I mean, don't get me wrong, if we go back to, and we go to the high school and we get 3 people show up, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Maybe we have a different discussion then, but you know, if people, the perfect example, like, you know, I forgot it, but this person who wrote a letter probably didn't realize that, I don't know if they realized they could come or not, so, that's all.
And, you know, and I would add to our discussion also, do we want to have the email option also? Or, you know, have that completely gone if we're doing in person? But we can hold that for next time. And I think one thing to
I don't think
think,
there's any harm in it, and I think it provides another way for us to reach out to the public. Since there's no question to answer in public portion anyway, that to have a statement read, I think, you know, is something that we may want to continue with and try. Because there's people out there that are compromised and don't want to come in person. So we have to honor that as well. I don't know if we want to address that specifically in the reopening plan, but I think it's something we could do as a board.
at the board level,
Yeah, and could Dr. Gianni just explain, that you said the stage is used as an isolation area?
Yeah.
Could you just explain that? What do you mean?
Sure,
If someone
well, in the
is,
event you had 6
positive?
children that overflowed from the nurse's office, we were using the stage area as a place
and
for.
there's no other place in the high school that can be used?
Well, quite honestly, it didn't get much use, so probably not there this year.
So we could use it?
And there was no other place in high school.
at the time, it was the only place.
I think we
put it.
could, I need to talk to Ms. Della Rosa, but I think it's possible.
And one thing I would like to keep in mind is the board meeting is a meeting of the board. It's for us to discuss issues, to be able to interact and talk to each other. And if we move into the larger venue, my concern is it can impact, you know, our ability to hear each other, to be close enough to each other, to feel that we're talking to each other. Because it's not a meeting with the public, it's a meeting of us with the public able to observe us and to hear
Well,
us.
which also gives good support to accepting letters and reading them into the
Right.
record, so that we can know what the community is feeling.
Right.
Yeah, to your point, I would suggest you continue reading, you know, who's here first, but
Yeah.
let those speak first, because remember, your policy has, I think, 30
30
minutes.
minutes.
So speak first, those that are here, and then
Right.
start reading afterwards. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that.
I don't have a problem with even reading today's, I just didn't want to go back on what we had said at the last meeting. So I didn't want that to come across as I had an issue with reading of the email. Because we had said one thing, I didn't want to give mixed messages.
So
And
in
apparently,
fairness,
it's not clear, since another letter was sent.
Right.
so in fairness, for this particular letter writer, and we know what the subject was,
Yeah.
it's what we're gonna be dealing with at our next meeting. So that letter, with what we're saying tonight, is we would anticipate there would be time to have it read. And certainly, all board members know what it says, because that's our practice, is that whenever a letter comes to the board, I let the person know that we got it and it's been distributed to all board members. So that is something that we can consider doing. Fair enough? Okay. So now,
Up to item 1. Oh, yeah, right?
I guess we're F1.
Okay, great. I placed this first item on the agenda hoping would have received some guidance for reporting for the new school year this fall. Unfortunately, as you all know, that has not occurred. The State Education Department, as we are anxious also to receive health and safety guidance from the Governor's Office and or the Department of Health concerning school reopening this fall. The Governor's staff has informed SED that guidance from the DOH is in the development, and the latest guidelines from the Center for Disease Control will serve as its basis. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention said masks should be required of everyone inside K-12 schools, while urging classrooms to return to full-time, in-person classes with proper prevention strategies in place. CDC recommends infection control prevention such as social distancing, hand washing, staying home when sick, and the wearing of masks. Some key takeaways from the CDC guidance for schools are students benefit from in-person learning, and safely returning to in-person instruction in the fall is a priority. Vaccinations is currently the leading public health prevention strategy to end the COVID-19 pandemic, and masks should be worn indoors by all individuals aged 2 and older. The CDC also recommends schools maintain at least a 3-foot physical distance between students within classrooms to reduce transmission risk. And students, teachers, and staff should stay home when they have signs of any infectious illness and be referred to their healthcare provider for testing and care. For the board's information, we continue to follow our 2020-2021 reopening plan document in our summer programs, which requires the wearing of masks indoors. For reopening this fall, absent guidelines from the state, we are planning the following. And for the board's information, I put what we're looking at in the admin contact, so you can read along, because it's a little lengthy, but I will read it for the public. We're planning for infection control prevention, which of course is social distancing, hand washing, recommending staying home when sick, and the wearing of masks. We're planning for social distancing, 6 feet when possible in general, 3 feet minimum desk spacing where it is possible, and 3-foot minimum with barriers in the cafeteria if guidance permits. We're unclear. Guidance from the past did not permit that, but we're not sure what it may be this year. We're also looking at the use of tents outdoors for breakfast and lunch, particularly at the secondary schools where we're having the real challenge of getting kids at that 6-foot while eating in our cafeterias. We're planning for masking indoors with classroom mask breaks as we did previous, temperature checks as well. Plan to continue the use of our classroom cleaning bins, or PPE bins. The board notices one right outside the board's room as they walk in here. We are planning for remote learning when a class or individual is on quarantine, just as we had last year. We're planning to conduct contract tracing. However, everything that you've been hearing from the state now, it's kind of been absent. Quarantine and contact tracing has been absent from many discussions. We are planning to offer after-school activities, grades 4 through 12, and to the opening of school. In regards to the remote-only learning option, currently there is no authorization to offer a remote-only learning option. Preference is in person. Both attendance and academics did suffer last school year with our remote learners. Lots of absences with our remote learners last school year. If remote-only learning option is permitted, Eastern Suffolk BOCES may offer a remote-only program, which we will explore. It may be a real win-win for the district, but we don't know what that might look like. We are also exploring South Country remote-only program, using recommendations from the Moving Forward Committee that I know I shared with the board, I think about a week or 2 ago. And I did share that with administration not long ago either. So vaccinations or weekly testing of staff, that's the big question that you've heard probably in the media. all things point to that may very well happen. However, in fact, on Monday, the governor indicated he felt that local boards should consider it and they have the authority to do it. I'm not sure council concurs with that, nor do I. In any event, I do plan on suggesting, but not requiring, our faculty and staff to get vaccinated.
So can you just repeat what the governor's office said one more
The
time?
governor's office, actually, I think I have a quote right here. On Monday, August 2nd, Governor Cuomo indicated local school boards ought to consider requiring teachers to be either vaccinated or submit to weekly testing. He indicated that, in his opinion, he believes teachers should be added to those who must be vaccinated or tested in areas with high or substantial levels of continuing transmission, as defined by the CDC. So this evening, based on what I just shared, I would like to begin our discussion on reopening and get the board's thoughts and any current concerns you might have, or any other directions you think administration should be looking at. We're meeting with our principals weekly right now, we're trying to get things into place. I think we're in a good place, but absent any state guidance, we really don't know exactly what will be permitted. Mr. Pacheco.
I thought I heard you say two things that contradicted each other, so I want to clarify. You said there's no provision right now within the state to offer remote-only learning.
Right, there's no authority.
Authority,
Right.
okay. But we're exploring our own program and BOCES program, so
So.
are they exploring just in case we get the authorization?
That we are?
Yeah.
And they have gotten many requests from school districts. Enough requests in that they believe it's a program they'd be able to offer.
So, okay, so BOCES, you're saying, believes they can offer it because they've gotten requests from school districts.
Right.
But if there's no authorization from the state, how could they do that?
No, they won't be able to.
Unless they get the authorization,
Unless
so they're
the
planning it just in case, that's what I
So
wanted to.
remember, remote only, the remote option was available through the governor's executive order last school year. That executive order is gone right now.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you read closely into Commissioner Rose's letter, it was kind of vague.
It was
right?
very
In
vague.
one part
It
it
was very
said,
vague,
yeah,
yeah.
kinda, and then it said you should permit.
Well,
So
Because that's what's gonna be the follow-up to my original question, because in that letter, and I'm trying to find out exactly where it is, the way I read it
It's on
was
that
that.
it's in the beginning
It's there.
and the end.
Yeah, no, understood, but the way I read it was that, you need to have a plan for, like you mentioned, quarantines, and anybody who has, maybe a doc's note saying, it's too dangerous for this person to be in here, but it's not necessarily a parent's choice to say, I'm gonna go remote because I'm fearful without any, specific underlying condition, or I just don't want my kid to wear a mask. Those seem to be the two reasons that people choose remote.
And I think I agree with what you're saying, right? So the one piece is you should offer a remote if there's a quarantine, which I totally agree with, and we will definitely have in place. What we're not sure we have the authority with is, can parents have a remote-only option where kids don't come to school?
Without some sort of underlying
Without some
condition.
sort of
Yeah, sure.
authority?
That's the way I read it, and the people that I've discussed from neighboring districts and things like that, board members and through Nassau Suffolk School Board, that seems to be the accepted feeling, that it's the way everybody else seems to be interpreting it. So it would be nice if it was cleared up. I don't know if the
Yeah,
attorneys have
I-
anything on that, but it is a little,
I can tell you, our neighboring districts, Brookhaven Cluster, superintendents meet weekly. No one was planning for remote. They were all planning to come back to in-person learning. And this is in June. And in speaking to Dr. Lux at Eastern Suffolk BOCES, she indicated that a number of districts are requesting it. So clearly they're seeing that same vagueness and high school. But we did put some positions in the budget, as you recall, and we're planning in the event that we are able to do it. I just don't know what might be better to do, whether we did it or if we went through BOCES. Certainly, we are not going to be able to put a teacher at every grade level. That's not going to happen. So.
And those requests that are coming to BOCES for the remote only option is because of I mean, with your,
The,
with the
the
superintendent?
school request?
Yeah, that's because parents are making those requests? to
No,
their
I
districts?
think the superintendent's just seeing the same vagueness in the commissioner's letter,
Okay.
that they better start getting prepared. So, and BOCES had talked about offering a program at the end of their school year. But I think everybody also thought we were going to be in person, so it kind of went on.
And how does BOCE intend to address the, each grade level? How-
Well, I'm sure they'll hire a specific teacher for each grade level, maybe even two, because they represent the Eastern District. You know, they probably have just about a remote school if they were offering it. You know, because let's say, we had numbers, we were from 20 to 34 grade level. I don't know the topic then, but I think that's fair to say we're about 24 to 34 grade level just here on remote only. I suspect that number will go down drastically here. You know, maybe you'll have 10. That's not a section, right? And smaller districts might have one or two, where it's really not going to be fiscally responsible for them to offer it. But if BOCES would offer it, then they can, offer full-size sections and hire full-time teachers.
That could be beneficial to families that have special circumstances, like for someone whose immune system is suppressed, or, they've got other family members that are particularly vulnerable.
Sure.
That could be available to them, and doing it through BOCES would be cost efficient because they can run the program for a good number of students as opposed to a relatively small handful that each district may
It
have.
would be cost efficient for them. I don't know what
What it would cost
I don't know
us.
what the fee schedule would be for the district.
Okay. But this is just all in the talking, planning stage, and right now we don't have enough information to know if that's something that will be recommended to us or even permitted by the state.
I'm hoping within the next week or so, and certainly by our next board meeting, that we're going to have some written guidance from the state, which will outline whether or not it's permitted. We just need to be ready to do that. Our plan right now is, we have placed all of our excess teachers just on the sub list, so we can get them working and then retro the real pay in the event to do that. And we're also allowing for some perm subs to have the bodies ready to go. So we're planning for it, whether we do it or we enlist these other places to do it. But again, once it gets closer, we'll probably need to survey families to see where they are. I'm a little apprehensive to survey now and give people false hope that it's an option. And like I said, I hope in the next week or two we get some more clarity.
One other question about, in your report, you were talking about how you're exploring the option within our district, but using recommendations of the Moving Forward Committee. Can you just refresh our memory about the composition of the committee in terms of like teachers, staff, parents?
It was faculty and parents. We specifically reached out to both groups, and we took everyone that volunteered. We didn't cut it off anywhere. Whoever volunteered, we put them on. I think the elementary committee had more parents than the secondary committee, but both were represented. They were run by, the elementary was run by Ms. Brennan and Ms. Doyle, and the secondary by Ms. O'Hagan and Mr. Burke. They had a very active group of people participating. I think we had about 4 or 5 meetings maybe. And they did a really nice job in terms of what they see would be best for remote learning. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if we'll be able to support everything that's best. I think the work that they did was great, but financially I don't know if we'll be able to support all of it. But certainly loud and clear at the elementary level was a single teacher, which
And that will go into the recommendation that is made to
Yes.
us.
Can we see the minutes on those?
I sent them to the board,
Oh, when?
not last update, the update
Oh, maybe I
before, I think
missed
it
that.
was.
Oh, you know what? I do remember that. Sorry about that.
So what are the board's thoughts on administration's thoughts and any guidance that you might want to provide, Ms. Angeloni?
I think that talking about it, like everything that you have here outlined is great, but I just feel like until there's guidance from state, we're just, why are we talking about it and arguing about it? The only concern I really have with the remote, with losing a remote option in the district is if kids are sick, then they may come into school in fear of missing school and an education. And when we had that offered last year, even though we saw the attendance, out of the classroom, they were still logging on and participating. And I just feel that helped keep our numbers at bay. So that's really my only concern. If we give it up to BOCES, then it's really gonna be out of our hands if kids, and I understand we're doing it if they're quarantined, but that's really only if it was contact traced or they had COVID. But now we're talking about just, the same symptoms as a common cold, which scares me. And now with the Delta variant being more contagious and targeting the kids, I just feel like I wouldn't want to send my kid if he has the sniffles, but I don't want him to lose an education. I mean, there was a couple times last year where it was allergies that I didn't want to send him because I didn't want to pick him up. So having that option was great. And especially the secondary level, I feel like I understand that in the primary levels it's a little harder, but the secondary level, the teachers turn on a camera, but they weren't like sitting there watching the kids, they were teaching. So I don't see how that would really deter them, inconvenience them, I should say, because they're putting everything on the Google Classrooms anyway. So that's really my only concern, but again, I feel like we can't even talk about it because we don't know if we'd even be allowed to do it.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's one thing that is clear from our past experience is that kids do better when they're here. But I also hear what you're saying. You don't want to send the kids sick, nor do I want them sick
Right.
here. So that's a challenge. My two big concerns of the lateness is the remote option and what we're going to be able to do in the cafeteria. Everything else, I think we're in really good shape. But because more kids are coming back to school, we're putting more desks in the secondary classrooms, meaning they're coming out the cafeterias. So we're not going to be able to do that 6 foot in there. But tents, if it pans out, may just be the option because we've got courtyards right off of the secondary cafeteria.
So would they be heated?
Where we would put the single chairs in there and we could spread them out
And it would be heated in the winter?
in the winter. Now you gotta wait cold.
I'm just saying, is there, because I'm sure there'll be walls and stuff, but I'm just asking, like,
The walls up.
they're
No,
not
I
gonna
don't
be
think,
freezing.
I think it's safe to say that those propane heaters are not permitted in schools.
So there's nothing that they could put in
Nor would
there?
I recommend it. I think it'd be fine. You're talking about, 41-minute period that ends up in, 20 minutes of eating, so. But again, it's something we're exploring, and it could really solve that big problem, because the elementary, we could continue to eat in the classroom. And then leaves the remote piece is the big issue. Ms. Felice?
Thank you. With the law conference that took place just a couple of weeks ago, the three most important things to do, they said, with the pandemic and for our staff and our students who can, is vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. So I'm happy to hear that we're going to encourage vaccination since we eradicated polio because of vaccinations. And I think some of us spoke how we remember taking the sugar cubes right in our own elementary schools. That's where I went for mine. So, however, the law conference did caution, and legal has to be very aware of this, how we approach that as to not violate anyone's rights and or privacy. So I trust council will be letting us know that. Also, there was mention about, because of the pandemic, some students under Zachary's Law who couldn't graduate by 21 now have extension to 23 to graduate. And it was unclear to me, I don't know if I missed it or it wasn't spoken about specifically, is there state reimbursement for students between ages 21 and 23 if they continue on with
This
us?
person saying no.
There's none. That, okay.
We have a couple of kids that will.
And we will have students in that. And then,
One or two. One or
Okay.
two.
and then, do we have any teachers that are requesting remote only because of their issues or
No, but I
concerns?
think it's early, right? We really haven't talked about it. I think we're all, you know, our principals, when we left school, we were planning to be in person.
Yes.
And that's how we left it. It's only the last couple of 3 weeks that things have been starting to ramp up a little differently. The landscape a little different. I suspect I'll hear something from folks at the faculty meeting. I've been meeting with Mr. Brady. I met with him twice this year, this summer so far. He hasn't indicated anything to me, but I think, like I said, I think it's early. And if we do end up offering an option, then we may have to make some switches around to provide for that.
And then just want to thank the board for holding this discussion until the full board could be here. I do appreciate that because I, you know, due to circumstances beyond my control, I couldn't be at the last meeting. And I appreciated that you waited for this conversation until we were all present.
And just to reiterate, but it does seem like you're focused on that, is our remote only. I think that was maybe one of our hardest challenges last year.
We're not starting like we started last year.
Yeah, that's exactly, you know, so if we do house it here in South Country, or, you know, however it may be, you know, to Cheryl's point, we have bodies here. You know, and even if we don't have the amount of students, you know, maybe you now have a teacher that's teaching 4th and 5th, and they're clustered together as a remote only. So you're saying that we're not gonna have one per, you know, and I assume that you're meaning towards the elementary level.
The lower grades.
Yeah,
You know, listen,
you
one
know.
thing I think you'll agree with is grades K and 1, they're missing the writing completely.
Right.
You know, remote only option at K and 1 to me is really.
No, and I
don't wanna say
definitely,
it's
I mean,
useless, but we're missing kids.
right, and if we are giving it, and it gets to a point where we do, I also think, and especially with the work that the committee's done, I think we can learn from last year. You know, we could definitely learn from last year, so even when it comes to the writing and things along those lines, if we have to give it, and there are, there's opportunities for us to be able to do it, and especially since the remote classes would be smaller. So again, I just, it sounds like you're already on top of it, but I just don't want to walk into next school year where we were in terms of the remote, especially when I say that really towards, you know, the younger grades, where we ran into a lot of speed bumps with that. So, but I think it sounds like the administration's on top of it. So I just want to press that issue.
Thank you.
One of the concerns I have that from last year, and I know while it was going on, I certainly didn't realize the impact, it didn't dawn on me, was, you know, it's elementary and it's secondary, right? It's K to 5 and then it's 6 to 12, and I think that's a big miss. And one of the things that I go back to was, you know, I didn't have an issue with remote Wednesdays, right? My son was a senior last year. Kids have to learn to be independent anyway. They're gonna be independent in college at some point. You know, people learning to work from home, so being able to structure your day on your own is a valuable lesson for high school kids. But that's darn near impossible for a middle school kid. So I wanna make sure that, you know, as we're doing this, we don't just break up, you know, K-5, 6, 12. I think we really need to, I'm really concerned about the middle school. It's a difficult age. Lots of things are happening to kids at those ages, a lot of changes in their lives, and they're growing up, and things like that. So I wanna make sure we have special attention there when it comes to these programs, because sometimes they just seemed like we just shuffled them off into the conversation with high school kids. And there's a huge difference from an 8th grader to a junior, or anybody else in high school. So,
And I do think our conversations did, last year, really, there were many times that we really tried to encompass 6th grade into what was happening at K-5. Because of the structure of the day, I think that may have changed, but, you know, and I know sometimes I continuously say this, but sixth grade tends to be our forgotten child, even though we are embracing our sixth graders a lot more now, but, you know, they really are elementary students, and they're housed at that middle school level. So you know, to Chris's point, you know, whatever this year brings, and, you know, if we've learned anything, we know we need to look a little into the future and kind of prepare ourselves into the future. Sixth grade is really that age that can be tricky.
You know, you bring up a good point too, and I should have thought of it because I have 2 sixth graders next year. Especially now that it appears that obviously we will be in a different situation than we were last September, although not completely normal as we know it. Sixth grade is scary for sixth graders, you know what I mean? So now they're going to a new building and there's a lot of other considerations to your point. I would like to know that we are planning differently or a little bit more diligently for that building transition specifically. I mean, same thing for incoming ninth graders, but I think sixth grade is so much more difficult. And, you know, kids darn right the last week of summer are visibly nervous about what to expect. And now, being that during a pandemic, and again, I certainly didn't think of it last year, but when you mentioned the sixth graders, it's really, it's very difficult. But I want to make sure we're doing everything we can. And listen, it goes the same thing for third to fourth, right? Those transition ages and grades, I just want to make sure we are really honing in on what their needs are. Maybe it's additional social emotional resources, et cetera. I don't know, but so.
And even when it comes to the elementary levels, you know, sometimes it's honing into the parents' fears, because it is scary for the parents to move from South Haven over to an elementary building, and especially during the pandemic. So just making sure that we are giving the opportunities that we've given before, whether it be orientations or whatever is happening, I just think would help to make that transition smoother into our.
Yeah, our orientations were all in person.
Okay.
We delayed the K-5s, they're in August.
Okay.
Sixth grade's coming up in August as well, I think a letter's going out real soon.
Okay.
I think
It's
just-
published, it's the
It's
26th.
published,
Of course, I'm not gonna be
Just
there.
for the public knows, and I just think, you know, with everything and heightened fears to begin with, I think it's important.
Yeah.
And then back to your moving forward committee. They took into account the things that we've talked about around the table in terms of sixth graders and how they're really a little bit different than seventh and eighth graders. And they've taken all of that into account when they've come up with what their plans or proposals.
They
would be.
included sixth grade into the K-5.
I just have one final question. With regard to health and safety, also in the law conference, it spoke to additional testing requirements of lead testing. Have we had all our buildings
We
tested?
were ahead of everybody.
were ahead.
We're done in both. We were the ones that jumped right in and didn't wait, so we were done before the extension even got put forward.
And then, are we looking at any other HVAC system retrofitting to increase the air circulation? We're not looking at that at this point.
Our
Because we all
univents,
thought
we're told the univents are recirculating the air. I said they should.
And how are we doing on maintaining filter changes and all that?
Which changes, I'm sorry?
Filter changes
Oh.
to keep them up, you know, running up to up to par?
Routine,
Okay.
routine.
One more thing, Miss Felice reminded me something, and I thought of this later today, and I know some people look at me like I'm crazy, but I do believe we need to have the discussion again and look into central air again and float a bond for it. We talked about it at the landfill, and I know there's an issue with solar panels and everything else, but, you know, I find it hard to believe that we can't explore an option and see if central air in all of our buildings is not doable through a bond in some way or another. It just seems to make sense on so many different levels now, from filtration, whether it's issues, you know, concerning the landfill or COVID-19, or the basic comfort of our students and staff at this point. I mean, you know, it just seems like there would be so many benefits from morale to recruitment to a lot of different things. So I would just be curious if somebody had, didn't have the time to kick the tires on that idea again.
Well, that would definitely require a bond, but I'm gonna be honest with you, you're probably approaching that point where you're going to need a bond for building repairs anyway.
Yeah, so, I mean,
I didn't hear that.
Architects just completed the walkthroughs.
Yes, final report for our five-year building conditions due sometime in the fall, and we'll start looking at it.
Do you think it's possible for them to give a guesstimate on central air based on the walkthrough?
Of course,
Why don't we start with that?
of course.
yeah, I just think we need to start having the conversation. I mean,
Well, this is the hottest month on record, every year we keep saying, we keep hearing that.
listen, it's shifted, right? June's cooler and September and October are hotter. So, and listen, like I said, what teacher isn't gonna wanna run to try to work in a building that's at central air? I mean, my wife's been teaching forever, and she prays every time she gets a room assignment that she's gonna get the one that's got the AC in it. So it just seems to make sense if it's doable. And anybody knows me, I don't like to spend money for no reason, but I think there could be a lot of benefits here.
John, you said we're gonna have to afford a bond for what?
Well, I say we're at the point where we probably are going to consider floating a bond for building repairs.
For building, okay.
Yeah. You have solar panels on the roof that are probably unserviceable, we've got roofing issues. We've been able to do an awful lot within the budget, within the capital improvement plans that we've had, but, it comes a time when you need to do a little bit more. And we have some bonds coming to an end soon.
Years, yes.
And with the 5-year plan that is being put into place, it'll give us a pretty good idea of what we can expect needs major attention during that period, and as well as after. Is that correct?
That plan is state required as to the status of what we currently have. So it doesn't address needs of things that may be wants of the community, but it addresses and it reports to the state the status of what we have, and the state can use that to make sure you're taking care of things that you have before you're doing new things, so that your roof doesn't, collapse before you put a swimming pool in, for example. So they use those, and that has to be certified by your architects, goes up to the state level. So we're gonna start looking at that and see the condition of all of our buildings and where we are.
And when is that report scheduled to be finished?
When's it gonna be ready?
They've done the inspections in July into August, and they have to write the report, so we expect it in the fall. We asked for them to complete it a year early. We're allowed to do that. It must be completed every 5 years. We asked for it to be done 1 year early, which the state allows that, because we wanted to start to do just that, see where we are, the conditions of our building, and start making a long-range plan on where we are and where we need to go.
I like hearing that it'll be an encompassing plan about everything that we need, so that we know what needs to be done and we're not just dealing with things in a patchwork manner. So I like that you're doing that. I like that, the architect is on top of giving advice about it, and we can now include the issue of possible air conditioning and things like that as well. Any upgrades that would be very beneficial. I'm glad to hear that that could be included.
Okay, anything further on the opening? So we're heading in the right direction?
So far.
Okay, great. Our next item for discussion is the first reading of Board Policy 5410, purchasing. This policy revision simply adds the name of the individuals responsible for purchasing here in the district, in addition to their title, which is a state requirement. Policy itself has not been changed. Strategic planning, as well as council, did review the policy, and I offer it to the board for a first reading.
Okay. So this will be our first reading, and it'll come back to us at our next meeting for a second reading and adoption?
Yes, is that August 18th?
I believe so.
Okay, so we'll be back.
Okay.
And that's it for items for discussion. I guess I will move to curriculum. Yes?
Yes, please.
Okay. Administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in Schedules G1 and G2.
Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Ancona, second by Mr. Parker. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And for the record, please note, Mr. Pacini stepped out for a minute, but the motion is approved unanimously by the other 6 members here.
And moving on to personnel, the administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in Schedules H1 through H8.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve H1 through H8? That was Ms. Felice. Second by Ms. Ancona. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Again, 6 in favor, and Mr. Pacini's not back yet. But
And I'd just like to welcome Catherine Ginelli at our Frank Long teaching assistant that the board has just approved. And another teacher.
the dual,
Yeah,
or rather
you
the,
know, my problem is that I have an old document. Christina, who wants to help me with that?
Where's
What?
Mr. Bruce?
Cercinovich.
Oh, that's a good one.
Dual language teacher Frank P. Long, so welcome both of you to the South Country family.
thank you.
And moving on to business items. Administration recommends approval of business items reflected in Schedules I-1 through I-21.
Is there a motion, Mr. Trent, and a second by Ms. Aruda? Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval? It's unanimously approved.
And I'll just add that in my opening comments, I mentioned that the board was going to consider before and aftercare program with the YMCA, and the board, for the public's knowledge, the board just approved that. So the Y will be offering before and aftercare, grades K through 5. More information will be coming out shortly. And that is, that's all me, right?
Okay, so parents who are interested in that, will they contact the Y?
Something will come out from the district with exactly
What they should do?
Yes.
Okay. Any idea when that'll go out?
Tomorrow, hopefully they're working on the flyer.
Hopefully
Okay,
tomorrow.
by the end of the week. And so it could be on the website by the end of the week?
And
So, yes.
I'm writing on the parent meetings, I plan to include it in there, so everyone will get it.
All right. Good, thank you very much for that.
Dr. Gianni, tomorrow's the pre-K lottery?
Tomorrow's what?
The pre-K lottery?
Oh, so, thanks for bringing that up. Pre-K lottery's canceled
Oh,
because everyone found a full day placement for the AM, and PM they wanted, so there's no need to have the lottery.
Oh, good.
All folks have been contacted today with regard, so we have one full day slot,
No full
one
day,
full day slot.
1 AM slot and 9 PM slots.
So we have 5 full day classes. So it's the most classes that we have ever had. And we're finally made MOE, Sharon?
First time.
Maintenance of effort, something we haven't made in a long time, and we finally made.
So could you give the numbers again, please? 5 full-time
Next one.
classes?
Five full day
Yep,
classes.
90 students.
That's 92 kids in the 5?
90, 90.
90, okay.
1 AM and 1
17
PM.
in AM and 9 in PM.
How many in the AM?
17.
17. Okay. So that's one section in the morning and another section in the afternoon.
Yes.
So there's still room for 9 in the afternoon
Yes,
and
one.
one more in the morning.
And we put that on our website.
Okay. All right, so 90 plus 26, 116 children. And do you recall how that compared to the population last year?
Yeah, but, yes, equivalent students, full-time equivalent, this is the most we've had in at least 10 years that I've looked at the numbers.
And full-time.
I call full-time equivalents, treating the half-day 2 children and 1 child, and, equivalent students, these are the most we've ever had. So that's great. Our grant supports 97.5 full-time equivalent students, because we haven't serviced that many even in the last 10 years, so now we've exceeded that. So hopefully, we can start talking to the state and see what happens as a result of serving more students for the first time in a long time.
And is that because we had more people move into the district?
Yeah, it's hard to tell because
not
people use
sure.
private services, but,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I think full day has a lot to do with
That's
it,
great news, yeah.
compared to, was this the 4th year for full day?
Yeah, but initially, we only had 4 sections, and when we had an overwhelming amount of people in the AM, and when given the choice, we opened the second section, another section, and created it.
Do we have closing remarks? And I'll go in reverse order. Ms. Aruda, Mr. Parker, yes.
I just want to take opportunity to thank the administration. We went through a lot last year, and I know the pressure that was on not only us as board members, but also the administration in general. And I think we came through it just great, and I'm just happy that I'm part of this. I was able to experience something that I would never ever known. All the work that goes on behind the scenes is just, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Nothing for me.
Police, just real briefly, when I reported that the planning commission was meeting tomorrow, it actually met today. And I was reading my own notice and I didn't realize today was the 4th. So good news, I went online to pull up the agenda, and the Suffolk County Planning Commission is recommending that the town does not change the rezoning until methods of wastewater disposal for the surplus land has been investigated and agreed upon with the Suffolk County Department of Health Service. That was the most significant finding. They also said it's an overuse of the property because there is already a composting facility in the proximity, close proximity, and an anaerobic digester is also there as well. So to suggest that for this area would be an overuse. And they point to specifically in recognition of the environmental justice designations of the area designated by the New York State DEC. So we're moving in the right direction.
And you don't have to draft that letter.
Actually, I guess not, because but I think it's important that we stayed aware, and many, you have many people in the community who spoke up for it, so it's good news.
Thank you for that update, and that's a good way to have a closing of today's meeting. If I can get a motion, and I know where to
you
look
got
for that.
one. Right here.
Mr. Trent, and a second by Ms. Incona, and I don't see questions or discussions, but all hands are up, it's adjourned. And it's
Good night.
9 o'clock.